So let's talk a little bit more about that point you made about resources. Diversity, equity, and inclusion departments are often the smallest teams when it comes to budget and staffing levels. And yet these departments are responsible for influencing and creating systemic change within their companies.
So diversity now, that's a new thing, by the way. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Equity is a new change. That wasn't a thing 5-10 years ago. Now it is. That's the new thing. So now it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's where the force comes in. That's the worry.
What recommendations do you have for CEOs on how best to support their DEI team?
Yeah, so get some people,
But did you hear what she just said? She called it a DI team because the jargon still is diversity and inclusion. They've added the equity piece, but the jargon is still DI.
So it was interesting because, I have been on my own for 20 years working with organizations and really helping to advise them and consult with them. And it was a very difficult decision for me to decide that I would go inside another company. And one of the reasons that I decided that I would go to Netflix is because when I said, well, I'm going to need a team, they were like, of course, do what you need.
Yep.
And when I started the first year, I remember talking to my boss.
But I thought you said you weren't sure if you were going to go. Stop. You were a consultant. You got an offer from Netflix. You were like, yep, I'm in. Of course you did.
And I was like, I think I'm going to need this. I think I'm going to need that. And okay, do what you need. Do what you need to be.
Now, let me ask you a question, a real question for any of you who've worked in business before. What kind of company, serious question, what kind of company would have a D&I person walk into a boss's office and say, I'm going to need all these things? And the boss goes, sure, do what you need. Go ahead. You have to be a massive company to say yes to that. No other company can do that. You know how many people are on her D&I team as of this video? 14. This is about 4 or 5 months ago. This is December, so 5 months ago. 14 on a diversity and inclusion team. 14. Who can afford 14 people who don't sell or make anything? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being forward in a business model. What kind of company can afford to pay 14 people who don't build or sell? They don't make or sell anything. They don't even service clients. They don't service clients. They don't make anything, and they don't sell. How can you just 14 people who just literally make our job harder? And I'm not trying to be mean. HR in general makes your job harder, even though very often they provide a very valuable service internally, a very valuable internal service. But they make your job harder. That's a fact. So how can you afford to hire 14 people that make your job harder? Oh my God, you have to be massive and just go, yep, buy more stuff, do more stuff. You have to be a $1 billion company. Otherwise, you can't afford it. And then when you get sued, you're finished.
Successful. And when companies are like, we want this, but you're not putting in the resources, that means to me that it's an intellectual exercise, but you're not really deeply into.
Now, at this point, she's right. She's right? If there are companies who just go, I want to hire a D&I person because I just don't want to get sued. And that's true. She's right on that, 100%. That does happen all the time.
To it. And so the way we're structured is we have like directors that correspond with each of our business units, or what we call orgs. And
so you have cultural commissars in each, I'm not joking, cultural commissars in each division. It's the political officer of the Soviet Union. That's what she's saying. We have people in every business, it's political commissars. I'm not joking. That's the issue. So I know it sounds crazy, but yes, it's so funny. Sam says, so many people have been dropping streaming platforms. The material has been overly woke and people are tired of paying for it. Disney took a hit after Gina, Netflix after Cuties. Yeah, that's true. You're right, Sam. And the idea of them trying to get out into other countries was a positive thing, but sometimes it becomes so woke it's unwatchable. That's true. And then, of course, it becomes less and less. So Paula says, cronyism is parasitic. Cronyism needs to feed on tax dollars to survive. Yes, Paula, absolutely. Yes. We talk about inclusion within the disability community in regards to accessibility, usability, inclusivity. It can be fascinating. Yes, it's true. And that other video talked about that, Missy. I could have kept it going, but they talk about people who are disabled, people who are having relationship disabled. It's a good thing. I mean, I'm not against it at all. As always, I'm not against the thing. I'm against the mandate of the thing, right? That's what I'm always against. I'm not against diversity. I love diversity. I'm against mandating it. That's what I'm against. But please, I think diversity is awesome. Just don't mandate it, right? Amy Dayton's company is different than Netflix. So they're going to have different reasons and different ideas on who and what they want to deal with and how they want to deal with things. Of course. Yes. So Danny says virtue signaling is cancer. People in society become so fake. Yeah, it says it's a signal that says I'm one of you, but I don't have to do anything. It's true. Diversity leaders, is there a college degree for that? Yeah, it's called the coaching certificate. I'm teasing, but it kind of is. Yeah, they're all just personal coaches. And then they just become this thing. So yeah, that's it. Wade says, do you think all of this focus on diversity hamstrings our youth character development? I think victim mentality creates a bias towards being a victim. I think there is a piece of that, Wade, and there is a worry, right? When you start seeing everything based upon race, you begin forcing people into a box. And when you force people into a box, then they think they have to be this. And I'm biracial, as you know. And for those of you who are biracial, you'll know what I mean when I'm going to say this, or who are actually multicultural, I would say. Biracial is probably the wrong way of saying it. Maybe multicultural is a better way of saying it. If you're multicultural, you'll know what I mean. When you are either biracial or multicultural, you go through identity crises throughout your youth. Sometimes into your adulthood. I was very lucky. As I got into my adulthood, I'd kind of gotten past that. Most of my problem was in my teen years. And I also, as a young kid, I grew up in, back then, what we called the ghetto. Now you call it the hood. But back then in the 70s, you called it the ghetto. I grew up in the ghetto. Most of my friends, almost all of them, were either Black or Hispanic. And then as a teenager, I grew up on Long Island. Most of my friends were either white or Hispanic. So most of them were a total change almost overnight. So am I Black? Am I white? Am I city? Am I suburbia? What am I? And I had a lot of cultural issues back and forth. And when you focus on diversity with boxes, I'm forced to put myself in a box. And if you're multicultural, you know what I mean? What if you're, I don't know, half Jewish and half Christian? Are you Jewish? Are you Christian? How were you raised? What are you, right? And now you've got to put yourself in this box. And I found myself as a youngster very often trying to be the ultimate thing, right? I'm the blackest kid there is, or, you know, because I'm super Black now, because I'm going to be Black, or my mother was German. I'm German. I'm more German than you are. I'm more white than you are. I mean, I became all of those things. And then I became nothing, and I didn't want to be anything. And I went back and forth as a troubled teen trying to figure out who I am. And I come to a point of being like, I'm just me. I don't care. And I'm proud of all my heritage, and it's all good. I don't care anymore. But that took time. As a teenager, I wasn't anywhere near mature enough, savvy enough to be able to do that. I couldn't do that. This type of thinking does it. And I see it in my daughters. I see how they're always kind of forced to be in a box. They actually wind up sometimes being, and as kids are rebellious, and if you have any teenagers, you know what I mean, they will sometimes be hyper-focused on one or the other. Like they'll rebel so much, they'll be extra racist because they're rebelling so much. I know that sounds dumb, but think about the youth, the TikTokers and the Instagram models. How many of them get in trouble for saying the N-word? It's like an epidemic. Why? Because what you're saying, Wade, they're either, oh, I'm the wokest of the woke, and I'm gonna check everybody, and I'm like the stereotypical, nun with the ruler, and it's gonna hit you over the knuckles with the ruler whenever you say any bad word. That, or I'm gonna flaunt it all and do whatever I want because the hell with you. I think it's common for teenagers. Remember that one woman who got fired from Teen Vogue because of stuff she said when she was a teenager? Of course she did. And so I think your point's a very valid one, Wade. I think it is hurting our kids because they're forcing themselves to either go into a box they may not want to go into, or they're becoming like the thought police, or they're becoming the go to hell everybody kids. And all of that's going to hurt them in the long run. So yes, like be less white coat. Yeah, that is one of my worries, that we begin to alienate. it's a bad thing. So yes. All right. Let's see if I can go down here. Jimmy says, I do hope I see everyone. I do see hope in it when I hire. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. I agree. Look, I teach hiring. I have a class on how to hire, and I'm still wrong. Hiring's hard, right? I'm good at hiring, and I suck at it, and I'm good at it. So it is not easy at all to do that. Absolutely. So thank you. Yes. Denny says, burnout, lull, working 12-hour shifts on the third shift for 2 weeks straight. I wonder what the definition of burnout actually means. Well, it's traumatic, as she said. Not really.